So I'm going to go with presented automated testing and benefits to developers. So I'm going to just talk straight to the answer. So I should give the answer right now. So the benefits, these are real opinions from the real developers. So the first one is automation is great, especially as the app keeps growing. So that's what they see a beneficial for them, for that person. And then another person says it's easy to take shortcuts, to miss bugs. If you have to manually test the app, automation makes sure that nothing is missed. And it actually continues and tests it faster in the future. And then the next one is basically, it will be definitely say that it's faster in the long run and allows testing to cover the entire application. Every time you want to run a test as opposed to manual testing. And the next person kind of says the same thing all over again. Just that, I'm just going to read it. I get a bug filed to me faster, which allows us to speed up development. The only downside is that there is a breaking change through the application, and it doesn't tell you where exactly broke. So that's the downside of it. It just tells you what broke, not the specific details of it. And same thing, it's very important to have it as the product stabilizes in the future.
Mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
You said that it would just tell you if it's broken. It wouldn't tell you where it's broken.
Exactly.
Would it even tell you how many times it was broken if it encountered multiple problems or multiple instances of the same problem?
It depends on the test cases. So if you're saying, let's say you're trying to log in, right? Mm-hmm. You have to enter a user and a password, then you press login button, right?
Yeah.
Then it will actually tell you, okay, first of all, I didn't find this element. Let's say maybe the password is missing in the page, on the website page or any application, and it's going to fail. But it's not going to tell you what happened. It's tell you this is the step that it actually failed on. And then actually the execution of it, like for example, if you have a user and then password, then you have login button, then you click the login button, you make sure that you're doing a search on the next page that actually logging in to the next page, so it's actually working. So it will just tell you the step. Either something went wrong with that step, but you still have to go in there manually and see if it actually broke something, or maybe something that changed. For example, websites have a tendency to change on classes, or different when they're actually refactoring, or the functionality of that specific button. So I have to dig into that and say, make sure, okay, is it automation problem or is it actually a real bug? That's where I have to digest it first and say, okay, is it my fault or their fault, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of like if you are revisiting a website or using an account that you haven't used in a very long time, and you don't have any real writing down of the username or password, but you try it anyway, and it says username or password was invalid. It won't tell you which one was messed up, just that one of them was messed up, or both.
Well, it depends on test case, right? So the way to understand the application, you first have to manual test it. So then actually the response of each permutation of, let's say, a login page, right? So what happens if I put a user and I don't put a password? What happens if I don't use the correct password, or if I do, if I exactly do login, you start seeing different messages saying, okay, you're missing user, you're missing incorrect user and password. So, or after so many attempts, it will actually give you different response saying you should, change your password, like an email or something.
Yeah.
But things like that. So yes, so you have to cover all those test cases and understand that the outcome of that, so you can actually automate those and actually get the results and say, okay, this is actually verifying each different path of that scenario.
Okay, so it's not a case of automation doesn't just completely make real-time testing. It doesn't just make it dead. There's still legitimate benefit to doing some real-time testing.
Exactly. So so another beneficial of this is stabilizing the product. in the long run. So when you first develop, it's always kind of fragile, all right? So sometimes requirements are not being put correctly or done correctly, or sometimes misinterpret or something, and you start actually going through that, and sometimes you give it back to the owner saying this is what you want, and sometimes they will make changes to that, and then things as an agile development, you start changing those on the run and say, okay, this is what the customer wants, you got to change this or not, or this is the new behavior, so you start changing those, and also creating a permutation of that outcome of each individual test cases and say, okay, this is what the correct behavior of the application has to be. But yeah, so that kind of helps out a confidence of the user or the product owner or anybody in charge or the customer in general. A confidence level say, this is actually working. If I run my regression test of 100 test cases or 500 test cases, and it say, well, if only 10% fail, or 1% fail, and then you say it's better than say, well, 80% fail. So it's better that gives you a confidence say, okay, it's a good product to launch, or like the statistics. So it just gives you that beneficial of knowing that application is working from beginning to end.
A double check, so to speak, like if you've made
Exactly.
just a small change and you don't want to go through the whole mess of
Exactly.
doing
So
real-time
you have to
testing.
manually test it again. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So other benefits, since first one is ROI. People like to hear that. So you can see the cost of actually manual testing and automated testing through time. So when the cost is higher, is the reason because you get different amount of test cases. Let's say you have 500 test cases. Sometimes you can get 1,000 test cases running, and then try to do that manually, step by step, and then you track the time and say, well, I'm taking at least 8 hours of today to actually run this. But then, in the future, every time that the application keeps growing, there's more test cases. So then actually that you say, well, I don't have time to actually test this in one day. I need 2 days, or this is not enough time, so you get more people to help you out to actually get this the product to production. So in automated testing, this is a lot easier. So the cost is less because you use machines to actually test the applications. You go through the whole entire test cases and says, well, and if you have parallel testing, it's a lot faster. So if it takes you and a person to do 8 hours testing, and if you have 2 machines, 4 hours, and if you have less than that, it just cuts the time in half always. So, and that's why giving enough feedback to the programmers will be a lot faster, and that's why they actually get benefit of that.
Can I just ask a very simple question, and it's probably because I haven't been doing this for as long as everyone else here. What's ROI?
Return on investment.
Return on investment.
Okay, return on investment. Thank you.
And the other benefits, actually you can run the test 24/7. So in the morning, I'll get the latest and greatest. I'll get a PR, make a PR, merge it in. I run my test in the morning. When I leave, I make sure I get the latest PR also, and run it through the night. So if it takes my automation to go through the entire test cases 5 hours or 10 hours, then I can do it during the day and during the night. So, if you add that amount of time to that testing time into the application, it kind of helps out the amount of hours put into that project if it was actually manual testing. And then we have fewer human resources because in automation you have machines. It's very reliability because it actually tests every time you run the automation, it's always going to test the same way always. So it is always the creativity of the automation, or sometimes there's always someone in charge to create the test cases. And most of the time will be manual testers saying, well, this is the new test cases. This is something that I got, or different path that sometimes you don't get to think about. And that's why it gets put into the set. Simultaneously, basically it's just a bunch of computers playing or running at the same time. Bugs, basically, it can actually find bugs only in regression tests. So it can tell you this broke in the past, but it can never, check the latest. So it's something that you still have to do some manual testing on the latest and greatest features. But then when the feature gets polished, then definitely it gets automated and it becomes part of that, making sure there's no introducing bugs in the regression test. So there's different levels of automation. The first one is basically unit level test, which most of the time the developers are integrating that as they go and develop features. Then there's the API testing, and then the UI testing. The automation part of it, where I come in, I actually start from API testing and UI. So that's how my main domain of a product. So API testing is basically describing, for example, Swagger. In our project with Black Oak, actually we have definitions of each API and actually go through those without going to the UI and making sure that each one of them actually works. And then UI level, actually, just making sure there's interaction on the application, texting, or combo box, or any moving mouse on the hover, or anything that you actually need to interact with the application itself. There's also automation testing can also implement methodologies to it. So unit test. So the unit test, we say that it's the developers, it's a white box testing. And then we have integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing, which is part of QA, which mostly is black box testing, which actually just grabs the application and makes an input and actually checks the output. It doesn't matter what's in the middle of it. And then API test is more like gray box, because it's actually digging in between the actual part of the application and the interface. So you got that's why it's called gray box testing. And yes, and non-functional testing would be like another performance testing and compatibility testing. So in automation, on performance testing, I actually use JMeter, Selenium also, and trying to find different APIs levels and make sure that which one is on the API is taking longer than others. Compatibility testing is more like, okay, you have this regression test of about 400 test cases or more, and then you want to make sure that this product is being run in different types of browsers. So you got five big ones, Google, Chrome, and we have Firefox, Safari, and then. So if you're running the same test cases manually, it takes a long time. But with automation, you can actually cut time and say, well, I can run one, do the parallel testing, and run in different 4 browsers, or even mobile devices too, or Android, or different flavors of it too, iOS. So that's the part of different methodology you can implement with automation. Then the tools are basically function and compatibility tests. I'm using Node.js, Cucumber, Mocha, Protector, Selenium, Browser Stack, API tools, and JavaScript. And then API and load stress testing is JMeter, Selenium, and BlazeMeter in Java. So these tools are for a specific project. It varies. If you're just doing, this is just for websites. There's different flavors of it. Like for example, if you're using Selenium, you know that it has You can program in Python or JavaScript or Java or C#. But yeah, it depends on what technology you use. You have to use those combinations of it. Because, like for example, Protector, right? There's a flavor of HTML on C#, but it's better to use JavaScript because it has the first paste, or kind of like first pick, or it's like, oh, this gets updated constantly by Google in this language, so I prefer to use something that gets that integrated instead of waiting for someone else to actually update their API and start using that later on. And then if you're using just desktop, there's different tools like Granurex or TestSmart, VerSmart, or Test Complete, or QDP, and other elements or tools. So I usually use TDD automation workflow, so test-driven development. So I actually just grab a Jira requirements. You actually manual test to understand the application. Then I just use Cucumber to actually create the features, and then create the scenarios, and then I go down into steps. So I start defining each English sentence is equal to actually a function, so it actually executes. And then actually start doing the test definition, and then I integrate the framework, which is just actually make sure that test is page-oriented programming, making sure that all the elements are being recorded, code is very readable, and making sure that it's reusable also. And then if something happens, definitely there will be some reporting bugs or close the stories. And that's the cycle goes on and on. But yeah, sometimes people don't understand very well automation. And sometimes you have to actually work a lot of hours to actually make something work, because sometimes you're coding. You're putting something up. It's like having to redo UI testing, for example, controllers, or if you're doing a user interface. So same thing I'm doing, just with actually words, because that's the way I'm actually communicating through the application and creating those test cases. And sometimes you don't have time, that you have to actually ignore it. Just look at the fire product, the product is going fire, you just continue working. There's no other choice.
This is fire.
So what is a QA automation engineer? Most people don't understand that it's kind of hard to actually explain, but it's the easier way to say it is just basically a programmer who went to the dark side. Because actually, the developers are some people who create stuff. As a QA automation engineer, just a guy who actually breaks stuff, who loves doing it. So, yeah, I like breaking stuff. So that's why I keep creating tools to make sure that app is functional, working correctly. And sometimes it's one of the things that a trait that a QA person has, that if you find a crash, you start doing the victory dance, or that's the enjoyment of finding stuff. It's like almost like a what's it called? Crime scene. You start investigating what happened. So you're going through different details into how this happened. So when you actually get all those details of like the cause and effect of a bug, you can actually replicate and say, this is what's happening. And yeah, I would say that end of the day is one of those things that it's like, end of the day, you just walk and put your hood on, and things keep burning behind your ground, but that's the end of the day, that's because that's your job. You break stuff. So and that's the fun of it.
You're not queuing the PA system.
All right. And that's one of the best days. You make sure you got. Oh yeah, I found so many bugs today. I logged them in. Yeah. So that's the best excitement. All right, and definitely, I'm going to show you a little bit more about the automation. Is recording video, so I'm going to actually have to go in detail of it. But hopefully you understand, and hopefully I can toss it up the videos and you can see it. So as you can see, I'm using Cucumber in the background here, creating the permutations of it, and then it's actually running. This is browser stack, so it's sending the information to browser stack through Selenium and actually interacting with the application itself. So this is very short. I cut the video so you can see the beginning and to the end of it. And at the same time, it's actually comparing images that making sure that the page is actually running correctly and also looks correct. So for example, I have API tools, right? And you have the base, the golden set, and you have the latest run on the application. It actually highlights where actually it broke. So for example, you can see there that you have different roles that is shown in one place and not in other. For example, in this one, you will see some recent activities, and then in the latest build, you won't have any. So things like that will actually tell me, and I get a report saying that something failed. And that's how I keep everything consistent and making sure that it always works the same way as before. And there's a different level also, an API testing through JMeter. I use, so I'm actually running the API JMeter and making sure that the requests and response data are actually coming back. So it's going through each one of them, and then I get a feedback saying pass or fail. So like I was saying in the beginning, I'm using Swagger, and by using that specific documentation helps me out how to put my APIs through JMeter and actually run it through Blaze meters, and I can check which API actually run faster than others and where the bottlenecks are. So for example here, it will actually take 3 to 4 seconds to actually log in when you're using 20 users in that amount of rate, and you see the velocity of it. And also I get reports, like which ones are actually failing on the long run. So it's the first time I run correctly, but after 20 times, it will just start giving the same error all over again. And it's very simple to put this together. Any questions besides? Questions?
I got mine out of the way early, so
You said it might take like 5 to 10 hours to run some tests sometimes. Like what would take that long to run through the automated tests?
Well, first of all, would be the amount of machines you have. Second is how many test cases you have, right? So if you, when I first started, well, 50 test cases you can run in probably like 15 minutes or less. Depends what you're checking. But unit tests will be a lot super fast because it's just straightforward, straight to the code. But this time it takes longer because you're going through the UI. And that's how much difference. So for example, you're running 500 test cases, which manually it will take me 6 to 7 hours to execute manually. If I want to test the application the same way every time, right? So, and then the next, that's why automation comes in and say, well, I got all these tests because I'm going to run it. But if I got that parallel test and a bunch of machines, I can cut the time down into 1/4 or less. So it depends how many machines I have at disposal.
So how do you clean up your test data once the tests are written? Ran the tests, a lot of test data got created in a backend system, right? So do you have separate scripts to clean up all that data?
Yes.
Or
So
also some of the test cases might need the test data, right? So to run other tests.
Exactly. So that's why is the most important thing is to have different environments, right? So you have developer, then you have QA environment, then you have staging, then you have production. So QA environment is something that the QA person can actually, it's the playground. So that's where I can actually manipulate data and say this is the starting point of something, or this is, or this is the way to actually continue at different test cases. So in the beginning, yes, I'll go through the entire application. At the end, I will use the API as a cleanup. So, there's deleting users or deleting roles or anything that I need to. It's something that you cannot do through the UI. So I'll use those as a cleanup. Or sometimes, if I want to become lazy enough, so I just actually receive the entire database. That's another way to actually start from fresh. But yeah, I'll make sure that my environment is always consistent and it has enough data to work with. And then create the data and delete the data and start all over again.
So you mean you have some baseline database
Yes.
where you can run your unit tests. All the tests that creates the test data, you clean it up, create it through the different scripts or through the UI function.
Exactly. Any other questions?
Cats.
Other guys, yeah. All right, thank you guys.
Good job, Victor.
Victor, you said it was a problem.